phase of our drawing. It's a pretty simple position. It's a cube just tilted. It doesn't get much more basic than that. Our little box image that we have, it doesn't help us much in that, like, we can't see like too much of the light hitting the front plane of this, whereas we can see more of the light hitting the front of the skull. That's okay, don't worry about that. We're going to push this as far as we can for it to be useful, then we'll go on to our next drawing. So again, returning to the whole idea of the stop sign where we chop away at that marble, let's already start chopping away at the outside of our marble right here. Oh, I should say that the light is kind of coming at this angle right here. Maybe actually it's coming even a little bit more direct from the face in front of the face. So we can already kind of put a gentle mass of shadow on the side of this. And I like to just get the feeling that, okay, light is going to be up here and this is going to be in shadow over here. It kind of helps me. So, okay, this is the base of the skull right here, and it kind of turns like so. I'm going to make this drawing a little bit smaller because I don't want to run off my page too much here. So when you see me work, one of the things you'll notice is I'm constantly adjusting my idea of what my drawing is that I'm working on. I don't really have everything all figured out before I hop in. I have to figure it out as I go. So I am looking at this right now, and now I feel like I've gotten perhaps a little bit too small. And I do want for there to be enough room for me to kind of feel my way around the whole piece. So maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to map this out just a little bit bigger. Just a tiny bit. As if I made my cube a little bit bigger. And there, now I'm back on track. I just don't want to work on a drawing that's too tiny, because then I have to get my pencil super, super sharp in order to get any information in. All right, so I have the top of the skull mapped out. I have the back of the skull more or less mapped out. I have the front of the skull mapped out. And as I work on this, I'm thinking again that this is a very flat form at the moment. So I'm not going to go into any great detail. So I'm just going to put the side part of the cheekbone as it recedes to the middle of the skull. And again, I'm avoiding using complicated terminology because I just don't want to make our heads explode as I say really complex scientific terms for all these things we're drawing. So the eye socket I think of as almost being, in a way, it's almost like an egg cup. It's like this, I think of it as literally holding the ball of the eye inside of it. So I kind of have mapped that out, and the eye socket is there's a protuberance right here that's a little bit bony. I'm just going to leave that right there. Now I'm going to go to the front of the face. So I'll put in a big broad line, and then what I'll do is I will just leave the ghost of that. And then I start going into the specifics of let's say the nasal cavity. So, all right, so the nose, the bridge of our nose comes out right here and then down. And then it kind of comes back in. Maybe I should have made it come in a little bit sooner. So there we go. Now we have the beginning of the area above the lip. It's not the lip itself, but it's the area right above it. Now let's jump over to the chin, because the lips can be tiny. The area where the teeth is can be a little bit complex. I don't want to get too preoccupied with that. All right, so here is the bottom of the chin right here. Here's the back of the jaw. And I feel pretty satisfied with this. I feel like it's going in a good direction. All right, so if this is the bottom of the cheekbone right here, then I'm now ready to put in the line of the teeth. So for the line of the teeth, I'm really not going to do anything too complex here. I'm just going to kind of keep it as 2 dashes. Like so. And now that I have those 2 dashes, if you want, I mean, you can kind of like hint at the teeth that are going to be in there. The teeth, they come forward in like a round, and so we can hint at that right there. And sometimes putting in a detail like teeth, it's definitely too early to do it. If you're, if you're going for like a highly developed drawing. But the reason why I might indicate it is just so that my eye has like a marker of where things eventually will fall. So there is the front of the teeth. There's the back, the lower teeth. So I have upper teeth, lower teeth. And with that, I pretty much have my drawing right where I need it to be. So again, keep your drawings very simple. Keep them as reduced and angular as you can. Don't attempt any like realism or anything that's like compelling at this point. We'll jump over to our next. So at this point in the drawing, I'll be repeating some of the things that we've said in the previous position, but my teachers, whether that would be art teachers or that would be teachers that taught me different things, such as like playing the violin or even different disciplines, they repeat the same thing to me, that their repetition is intentional. So my violin teacher, the fiddle teacher, Martin Hayes, he returns to the same theme for me, and he says, hey, I need you to focus on this. And until I get it, he doesn't let up on it because it's an important lesson. So that's what's taking place right here, in that I'm doing the stop sign. And you see, I'll kind of like map something out, and I'm looking over at the skull beside me to get the actual position. And then I just want to be sure that I have all the shapes in correctly. So I work in a very angular, kind of like broad way, an all-encompassing way. And again, that whole idea of the stop sign. And if my shapes aren't correct, and I look at things and like, let's say the bridge of the nose is just not landing in the right spot, it's actually fairly easy for me to correct it, because everything is in a big and broad angular stage. And having got to the place where, okay, this feels good, this has landed, then I put in a big broad shade over an entire area. And that's very intentional, just like knocking back an entire area. And I learned this approach to just like massing in a huge shadow when I studied in Italy at the Charles Cecil Studios, the oldest active atelier in Europe. And they taught me to just mass in the shadows big and broad, and then work into them as time goes along. But to not really focus at all on individual planes or individual masses, but just separate the pure light from the pure dark. And to get that, you could say, well, how do I know where to mass in? Close one eye, squint, look at your object, and try to like imagine where there might be generally a line in between the light and the dark. And so that's what I've done here. And as the idea develops further, which you can see it taking shape, then I will go for specific values, like let's say right around the eye socket, right around the cheekbone. I'm now starting to even get the upper part of the teeth and things, like the specific tooth at the front that I'm working on right here. You can see how I'm going from the big broad planes to the smaller planes, and I'm going from the big broad masses of shadow into the small little moments of shadow. And you can think of that in two ways. You can think of, okay, I'm just going to visually observe where the shadow is on this piece, like where the dot of dark exists on the actual skull. I'm going to put a dot of dark. Or you could think of it as, well, this is a plane that's turning, and it's turning away from the light. So it's almost like, one, you're relying completely on your eye. The other, you're thinking it through, and you're saying, okay, well, if this is true, then that can't be true. So I gotta I have to change this. If this is where the eye socket turns, then it's going to get really dark because the light can't reach there. So I'm thinking of that the entire time that I'm drawing this. I'm just really trying to think of, okay, what is actually just straight up dark because I look at it. And then the other thing I think is, why is it dark? And so this is important because in my drawing all the time, what I'm doing, I mean, constantly, is I am choosing to see certain things and choosing to ignore other things. So the back part of the jaw, so you can see that the jaw, it has a U shape and that like it curls around. So like the right hand side of the jaw, the left hand side of the jaw. The far side of the jaw, which is a little bit to the left, I'm going to leave that dark and blurry so that it kind of recedes away from us. And that's where like I override what I'm actually looking at, where I'm constantly making decisions about how to heighten like the most important element and how to diminish other things. And I like to, right in front of you as viewers, I like to show you how often I change my idea. So, I mean, this is like take 20 on the external line of the teeth right here. But my idea, as it's developed further, I can just see that what I had earlier on, it just wasn't correct. It just wasn't lining up. And so I keep on searching for that correct line. You can see I've changed the back of the head a number of times. Now, here I am on the teeth and the jawline. This is so many passes. But you, as an artist, if I could impart something, it's the willingness, the abandon to make mistakes often and to just jump in and just explore it as thoroughly as you can. One of the things I love reading about like different disciplines and just different areas of knowledge and different areas of study. And I love reading about like experimental physicists and how someone such as Stephen Hawking will come up with a thesis. He'll come up with an idea and he'll spend a lot of time on that idea. And then once he's finished really articulating that idea, then he sets out to disprove the very thing that he just had a thesis on. I mean, it's really remarkable how there's just this ruthless cross-examination that takes place. Well, I'm doing that all the time in my work. I'm always putting in a shape, and then I look at it and I squint. I'm like, well, is that the best version of what I'm looking for here? And if it's not, I will disprove it and I'll just go back and I'll unravel all of my work. I don't do that capriciously. I don't keep on erasing and keep on moving things because I'm like mad at myself or because I think, oh, my work is terrible. I just look at it and I'm like, well, there's something better here. And I think there's a little bit of a story that I could share. There's an artist who I worked with in Italy, and he wasn't in the studio long, but every day he would work on his portrait of the model, and the model would be sitting there and he's drawing her face, and then he just totally destroy the entire thing. He'd just tear it up and he'd throw it in the garbage. Like, I'll start fresh tomorrow. But he never got a drawing, really. His work never arrived because he just kept on throwing it out just because he was kind of like self-flagellating. He just hated his own work and he was just very critical of himself. And the guy was pretty talented. And I thought that was unfortunate. And I don't think that's a good way of working. I don't recommend changing something, just tearing it up and erasing it just because, oh, I hate it. But I do recommend being playful and just exploring options as they come to you. And then if there's something better, just be ruthless in going for that better thing. So it's a dance. So you can see that I have two light sources here, and I have light coming from the upper right hand side and I have reflected light bouncing off the lower left hand side. So I have that double light hitting this thing because I like the whole idea of using reflected light to like maximize the form. You don't need to do that all the time. In fact, there are loads of artists that will just allow the light to hit the principal side, and then the back end of it will just disappear into utter darkness. That's great. That works. That's a really dramatic effect. For this piece, I feel like there's an opportunity to bounce light off the back of the skull, and I think it'll look cool. So I'm gonna leave that light there, and I like that feeling of like the soft glow of the reflected light on the lower left-hand side against the brilliant raking light on the upper right-hand side hitting the front of the face. So you can see as I'm working on all these things that I am continually cleaning up. I'll erase away information, I'll blend a little bit, and then I go in and I put in like very, very subtle plane changes. Always I'm thinking about the planes of, like, let's say the cheekbone, and then the direction of the light. And so as I work in this like little passage here, I do, for a moment, I think it's worth pausing and talking about why it is that I'm using like a really high quality paper. So this is a heavy duty Bristol paper. It's just got a lot of like stock to it. And I use this for the simple reason that I can just erase away. And if I can erase away a lot, then I can develop my idea. And I don't have to be worried about like the lines from the previous thoughts just like kind of holding me back. So as I work, I erase away. As you see, I did that on the teeth right there. I erased away like these little glints, moments of light. And in a way, erasing is like, I don't regard it as being all additive and negative, where like you add in one sense and you pull away in another sense. In a way, I'm almost like painting. And so the eraser is almost like my paintbrush loaded up with lighter paint. And now as ever, I will put a little bit of shade in the background right behind the light striking the face. And that causes the light to pop off of the face. And that's what I really want. So I'll keep the contrast in the front on the face like pretty good, so that I can just feel, again, that really strong light just striking the front of the face. Sometimes students have asked me why it is that I will use the blending stump in some areas and why not in other areas. It's oftentimes it's an issue of focus. If I want the eye to go to like a particular passage, and if that passage has like some sharps in it, like let's say where the entire front contour on the right hand side meets the dark behind it, well then I need a razor sharp, really hard pencil. So this is like I forget, like a 3H pencil, something like that. And that gives me a razor sharp line. But where I do not want the eye to go, I will get a blending stump out, and I'll just allow the light to pass, allow the area to kind of like be soft, almost in like soft focus. And I think that's a useful way of bringing your viewer's attention to where you want it to go. But then there's just also the consideration that light flows over, like let's say, a spherical form in a soft way, and the plane change for a spherical form is very gentle and gradual. And so I keep that just really nice and blended. But then where the plane changes are abrupt, I get a really sharp pencil and I'll indicate those plane